Welcome to Autism Knows No Borders, a podcast where people connected to autism inspire change and build community. Together with the Global Autism Project, I'm your host, Rachel Harmon, a professional with over a decade of experience in the field of autism services, outreach, and advocacy. How can shifting the focus from deficits to strengths impact the way that autistic children view themselves? If you're the parent of an autistic child, or you work with children on the spectrum, you'll want to listen to this throwback episode with Jude Morrow, where he talks about the importance of nurturing strengths. This episode was originally released on June 17, 2021. Based in Ireland, Jude Morrow is an autism self-advocate, TEDx speaker, and author. He is also the founder of Neurodiversity Training International, an autism mentoring, training, consultancy, and motivational platform. NTI works with nonprofit and Fortune 500 companies using a strengths-based approach to change perceptions and attitudes. Jude's publications include Why Does Daddy Always Look So Sad? And Loving Your Place on the Spectrum. In this conversation, we discuss autism awareness and acceptance in Ireland, what it was like for Jude to grow up feeling that something was wrong with him, accepting his autism as a result of becoming a parent, lessons learned from parenting as an autistic person, and autistic problem-solving and communication skills. In this episode, discover what's possible when you nurture passions and talents first. And now, I present you Jude Morrow. Hi, Jude. Welcome to Autism Knows No Borders. Thank you for being here today.
No, thank you for inviting me to come along. Really glad to be here. Really glad to be here speaking with you. And looking forward to it.
Could you please briefly introduce yourself?
My name's Jude Morrow, and I carve heroes for autistic people, children, young and old. I'm autistic myself, and through my training and consultancy, I like to show that autistic people like me can grow up and live happy and successful lives. I've written a book that was published by Beyond Words, the publisher of The Secret. Why Does Daddy Always Look So Sad? That's what I suppose became my entrance to the stage. They're publishing my second book on the 14th of September, Loving Your Place on the Spectrum. And I tour the world speaking and training with schools, startup businesses, even Fortune 500 companies on the benefits of autistic talent, neurodiversity, and moving away from a deficits-based model. And my vehicle for that is Neurodiversity Training International. And we are the world's largest and fastest growing autistic-led movement. So that is the vehicle and a brief background on me.
Thank you. Well, let's first start with talking about the level of autism awareness and acceptance where you are. And you're from Ireland, right? Derry, Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the current understanding of autism in Ireland, and how has this changed over the past decade or so?
Well, I think Ireland is much more progressive, I think, than a lot of other places, which is good, which is somewhat of an advantage. Given the global reach that we have with Neurodiversity Training International, it's a good measurement as to how progressive other countries are, because even with the demographic, the vast majority of people here in Ireland tend to be conservative Catholics. And with the new kind of concept of neurodiversity, it's been adopted somewhat here, which is a positive, but still a lot of people are very much dependent on the deficits and negative medical model based organizations for their advice, guidance, and inspiration. Because, I mean, my parents went on a similar journey to the journey a lot of your listeners will have been on. Is I received a diagnosis quite young in life. I'm 30 now, and they went to like a training course or a half-day free workshop and left feeling more afraid than they did when they went in. So where our places in the awareness and acceptance spaces is that when treated properly, there's a lot of positives about autism. It can be a gift to be shared, not a burden to be pitied. So here it's pretty good. I think on the whole of it, there's a lot of interest and a lot of uptake in our programs here for our strengths-based approach. But like everywhere in the world, we still have a long way to go.
Mm-hmm. So, what kinds of support are available to families from the point of diagnosis?
To be honest, not an awful lot, because a lot of people hinge their hopes and beliefs on a diagnosis being somehow the keys to the kingdom. Here with the NHS, which is the public healthcare system, support is often sought out by parents. And one chunk of value I always give, whether that's on stage at a public speaking event or on podcasts or even during training that I do, that I deliver, I always say that parents need to be proactive, because if parents are proactive in seeking support, they're more likely to get it, whether that's in the form of local support groups, because their kids will meet more kids like them and they'll meet more parents in the same position. So I always say peer to peer support is the most positive method of support that you can possibly get. Before getting into the advocacy, book writing, speaking kind of circles, I was a social worker for a long time. I know quite a peculiar job choice for an autistic person, according to the stereotypes. And I always found that a peer-to-peer support has always been very useful, even looking at 12-step programs for addicts, whether that's Alcoholics Anonymous or anything else, is that people get support and guidance from those who are in the same or similar position to what they're in, and it has maximum impact. And that's why I think, with me and NTI, we've had so much impact, because for us, we've been there, we've done it. We've walked the walk and talked the talk, and made the mistakes so people don't really have to.
Hmm. And I can imagine that for people who are seeking support, receiving it from someone who they feel like they can really relate to and who relates to them can bring that sense of validation and willingness to be maybe even more open and vulnerable with them.
Yeah, and a lot of parents hinge their hopes on a diagnosis. Now, I'm not anti-diagnosis in any way, and I know that autism on the whole is often used as a synonym for intellectual disabilities. And the fact of the matter is that the vast majority of autistic people are not intellectually disabled at all. But whenever it comes to support, a lot of parents do hold on to the fact that there will be additional support and guidance and everything else. And a lot of the time, it's just not the case. Because here where I live, the waiting list for an assessment is 18 months. Now, I know that a lot of people will need assessments and diagnoses for things like housing or welfare support and various other things. So I'm not anti-diagnosis in any way, but a lot of schools seek diagnosis for children in the belief that it will somehow get kids more support or make teachers that little bit more tolerant and accepting of children that have different learning styles and different communication methods. A diagnosis just doesn't work like that. And I would always say that whether it's for teachers or parents is to develop that understanding first, rather than thinking that somebody is going to provide it for you.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Let's talk about your childhood. So you did receive a diagnosis, you said, right? When you were 2?
Yes. Well, whenever I was young, whenever I was very young, it was clear that I wasn't quite like my older sister, Emily. I came from a pretty standard Irish Catholic nuclear family. One mother, one father, one older sister, Emily, who's a few years older than me, one dog, and one picket white fence. And my older sister was always the yardstick as to my developmental milestones, so to speak, because I didn't really walk until I was 2, and didn't really speak or communicate like this until I was maybe nearly 7. So it's been a bit of a transformation between then and now, because nobody can get me to sit down or shut up anymore. It's been a bit of a transformation for sure. And my real joy in life was lining my toy cars up on the windowsill of my parents' house. And I didn't really like to mix with other children. I suppose that stayed with me. I don't really like to mix with a lot of people, even now. But in the mid 90s, whenever I was growing up, autism wasn't a word that was really talked about. It wasn't a concept that was really in the mainstream eye or ear or view at all. So I went to mainstream school. It was clear that I did have the intellect, and I went to mainstream school. I didn't go to special education school. I did go to a special needs kind of nursery or kindergarten before I went to mainstream school. But at mainstream, I did have a classroom assistant and didn't go to school every day and did have some of those supports in place. But as a child, it was, once there was a lot of happy memories and happy moments and a lot of things that I loved, I became acutely aware that I was somebody that wasn't socially acceptable to everybody else because the onus was always on me to change. That lining my cars up and stacking things up was a wrong way to play. And I had to change. Then whenever I used to whisper things under my breath to communicate and almost practice interactions, that was poor communication skills. And I was the one that had to change. Then, as far as playing games with more than two players, wasn't really my bag, wasn't my jive, didn't really take to it. Say the same way I don't really now. And that was deemed per social skills. Again, whatever they are. And it was always me that had to do all the changing. And sadly, even in 2021, the year that we're in now, that still happens. Is that a lot of people, now don't get me wrong, will say what their heart's in the right place. That, oh, these autistic children need to fit in to survive and not get bullied and everything else. And it's just not true. It's just not the right attitude to take. Because for me, I would say that all my teachers and classroom assistants had their hearts in the right place for me. But at the end of the day, the onus was always on me to change. And that existed right the way through my school journey, from kind of my nursery schools to mainstream primary school, elementary school, and then secondary school. Then after that, the onus is always on us to change. That's why I now want to say that attitudes and perceptions need to change, not us. So it wasn't an easy journey. And I did grow up, I suppose, harboring a lot of scars from childhood that really affected me as a grown man. And that involved going on another journey of its own.
How did you finally come to accept your autism?
Believe it or not, autistic people like me can also have families. And my son was born on the 23rd of July, 2013. Oh dear, it's not long until he's 8 now. I mean, cliches are cliches for a reason. I mean, where did that time go? I've just taken a side thought there. Wow, it's just gone in so quickly. And I was very underprepared for parenthood, very underprepared. I developed coping mechanisms as a child and teenager that were centered upon a reliance on routine, a reliance on structure, and entering the parenting journey would have caused that to become cattywampus. So the only coping mechanism that I had started to fail. And I had a lot of fears and worries. Would Ethan have the same journey as I've had, being singled out in school and being the child that everybody wants to fix all the time? And when Ethan was born, it became clear early on that Ethan's not like me. He's not autistic. So he was able to walk and talk before he was 1. And even now, he's a Hollywood sweetheart. He loves the media. He loves being photographed and interviewed. And whenever Ethan and I were kind of growing up together on this journey after he was born, he noticed that I wasn't coping with things very well, that I didn't like change. And eventually it led Ethan to ask my mother, his grandmother, why does daddy always look so sad? And I suppose that was the cheesy motivational speaker moment that I needed to come to terms and go on a journey of my own. And that's formed the whole story of my first book, which was Why Does Daddy Always Look So Sad? It's that therapeutic journey and story of being a brash and non-accepting teenager to proud autistic man.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the kind of compressed outline that I needed to go on. I needed to come to terms with it eventually so that I could eventually have a better relationship with my son and my wider family.
Hey, Rachel here. I'd like to thank one of our listeners, Siva96, for reviewing the show on Apple Podcasts. They said, quote, "Highly recommend this podcast. All speakers are amazing and informed with diverse backgrounds. It really does bring the community together, and I loved hearing from speakers globally. I can't wait to continue to listen to more episodes." End quote. Thank you for the kind words. 5-star reviews like yours help us to continue spreading autism awareness and acceptance around the world. If, like Siva96, you're finding value in Autism Knows No Borders, please leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. And now, back to the conversation. What have you learned about yourself from being a parent?
I have learned that little children will always push boundaries, that they will always want ice cream for breakfast. They'll always want electrical appliances, games, tablets, consoles very early in the morning. And with Ethan knows that I'm not like him. And he, in his own wonderful childlike way, he knows how to cause me minor irritations because he knows I have a lot of buttons and Ethan has a lot of little fingers. So it's been a really fun journey so far. And with Ethan, because Ethan's so socially outgoing, whereas I'm not, and it's a choice for me. It's not because I can't socialize. I often choose not to, except if I'm in the company of people that I know and trust and love very dearly. But whenever Ethan and I had book signings and everything before COVID and any conference invites and anything like that, is that Ethan was almost like my chaperone, which is odd because whenever the Queen has public engagements, there's normally someone with her in white gloves to say, "This is the Queen." And Ethan does that for me, and he's only 7, or he was only 6 and 5 at the time, where he does that for me, which is quite nice. But yeah, we've been on a bit of a crazy ride the last couple of years, anyway.
Mm. So, what are some unique challenges you face as an autistic parent?
I don't know if I really have any challenges, so to speak, simply because I'm autistic. I'm a parent like any other, and I suppose I've had to adapt. It was a hard journey to adapt because I can only speak from a personal point of view. Is that I'm someone who likes to have a life plan, the 5-year plan, and I suppose whenever Ethan was on his way, that I suppose it stopped the plan somewhat because I, of course, didn't plan to have any children, especially so early in life. And that was obviously a challenge for me to kind of move past the 5-year plan that I had in my head. But I have to say that since Ethan has come along, the 5-year plan, including him, is much better than the original one that I had. And Ethan knows what areas I like and what I don't like. Whenever he was very young, he loves children's play parks, and they're always a sensory, hellish breeding ground for me of noise and crying and shoes squeaking and just chaos for me. And Ethan has always been quite empathetic. If he knows I'm not happy there, if I'm sitting on a bench, he would have came over and says, "Do you want to go home now?" And sometimes I'd be like, "Oh, okay." But I think now the challenges are getting less and less because Ethan knows what I like and what I don't like, and I suppose understands it a little bit more. So I'm enjoying the nice, peaceful few years before he becomes a teenager, and then he really starts to push the boundaries then.
So, what do you want people to take away from reading your book?
I'd like people to take away that being autistic is fine, that being autistic can be the cornerstone of people's success. And in the UK, Ireland, and Europe, a privatised for-profit medical care system isn't the primary source, whereas in North America it certainly would be. And I think that there's a lot of fear and misinformation and sadness propagated by private, and air quotes I'm using for these, therapy and treatment centres that only seek to profit from the fear of parents. And I want people to take away that whenever passions and talents are nurtured in autistic children, wonderful things happen. Because I always say, is if Albert Einstein was born today, if Albert Einstein was born at the time of this recording, which is the 11th of May 2021, is if Einstein was born today, we wouldn't have any relativity, because some well-meaning doctor would probably say, oh, little Albert is constantly worrying about space and time and the nature of reality. He needs to stop doing that. He needs to go to this air quotes therapy center at a massive cost to your insurance. And I think any therapies and supports that seek to make your autistic children indistinguishable from their peers or feel like a broken version of normal should never, ever, ever be considered. Nurturing passions and talents should always be the first order of the day. And a common retort that I would get to that would be that, some children have additional needs and support needs and so on. And that's fair, that's understandable. But no matter where somebody lies in the cognitive sphere, I find is that everybody has talents, strengths, things that they're good at, and most importantly, feelings as well. So no matter where somebody is ability wise, that everybody has strengths and everybody has different talents, challenges, preferences, and things that they don't like. So that's what I want people to take away from any of my books and writings and live stuff, is that whenever the kind of seeds of passion and talent within children are watered, nurtured, and incubated, wonderful things happen.
What are some of your strengths related to autism?
One thing that I was always very good at was reading. I've always been an avid reader. Whenever I was young, and I love telling this story, I gave the same story in my TED talk as well, was whenever I was 9, this was around the time the Harry Potter books were coming out, and we were reading them together as a class. And I was always first to put my hand up to volunteer to read to everybody. And my teacher had the best idea in the whole world then, and it was to put me forward to be the narrator of our school play that year. And I remember standing on the stage and seeing my mum and dad so proud of me there. And that I look back at it and say that was my first speaking gig. Without that experience, I wouldn't be speaking to you now. I wouldn't have toured the world as a motivational speaker. I wouldn't have done a TED talk. I wouldn't have written any books. I wouldn't have scaled and grown my own neurodiversity training and education empire. I wouldn't have done any of those things. So that was the first real kind of experience of my gift and passion being nurtured and a good thing happening from it.
Mm-hmm.
Very interestingly, another good strength I believe autistic people have is that of problem solving. I have been pretty active on the social media app Clubhouse recently, and I hosted a room with she was an associate professor of psychology and had done a lot of research and work with Nobel laureates, many of whom have been autistic, or whether that's a confirmed diagnosis or they believe themselves to be. And a lot of research wanted to know, how do people get to, the pinnacle of human talent, which is to be the recipient of a Nobel Prize. And the number one trait or characteristic that they had was that they were phenomenal problem solvers. And I think with that, that's where I believe I shine as well, is that a lot of people would view the wonderful autistic brain as flawed and needing fixed, and being too logical and too black and white and all of those outdated notions. But the ability to problem solve has been universally there among autistic people.
Mm-hmm.
Even with very small children and adults, it's just a number one key thing, and it's definitely been an advantage to me and can be an advantage to everybody else if they allow it.
Does this show up like in little everyday tasks or bigger things if you're working on a project?
It shows up in a lot of different things for me, where it can be household things, because one of my definite weaknesses, I will say, is building flat pack furniture. I hate it. I'm no good at it. It's hard for me to pay attention to it. It's hard for me to read it and follow through with it. It's just a real pain. But no matter what, I think the problem solving and logical side of my brain and the brains of other people can show up all the time. The same thought patterns is, instead of focusing on problems, I admit that sometimes, like every human being, I can be consumed in worrying about the problem. But I very much have a mantra of, who, not what. I mean, who can help me with this? Is that I'm certainly not afraid to ask for guidance or for help or to delegate things to people. And that certainly works for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We know that a lot of autistic people can be very direct.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that is one of the strengths also, that there's less worry of what people will think of you if you ask them for something, for help. So it kind of frees up people to be more efficient in a way.
It absolutely does. And I that's why I love communicating with fellow autistic people, because we can be direct with each other and understanding of each other and really jive off one another's communication style. Because kind of navigating the treacle filled world of neurotypical communication is that there's a lot of kind of vague, not easy to see whether they're spoken instructions or written instructions. Is that I'm the type of person that I don't really dance around a problem. I can say, I need help with this, and this. So who can help me with each of those things? And I can say that person, that person, that person, that person, that person. And then it's a case of, okay, let's reach out to them. Let's talk to them. Let's tell them what I want. And then if I'm happy enough, then that's it. I mean, it's always nice to work with fellow autistic people. It always has been for me. It's always a pleasure. Now, I know it's not too common, although with my trainers and stuff, we're all neurodivergent or autistic. And our meetings are always reasonably short, because it's just a case of pretty much a Q&A, some short updates, and then we kind of go from there. So it's always good to be in company of people who understand you, and I want to kind of broaden that company for people on a global basis through giving people a different mindset and a new perspective toward us.
Thanks for tuning in to Autism Knows No Borders. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and come back next Thursday for part 2 of my conversation with Jude, where we talk about the neurodiversity movement and its implications. Thanks for listening. Take care.